Vaughn is now in there. New set of downs to work with. Prescott will throw it. Left side. It's caught by Lamb. Breaking away. Lamb. Goodbye. Touchdown, Cowboys. Lamb is explosive. Deontay Banks gets beat on the play. 55 yards on the catch and run for Lamb.
Welcome to NFL Daily, where we hit all our field goals. Okay, Brandon Aubrey didn't actually do that tonight, but the Cowboys get it done. 20-15. The Cowboys survive. This was a get it done and survive type of night. Hopefully, my guest today on NFL Daily can do the same. Danny Heifetz of The Ringer. Danny, I'm sorry to have you on after a Giants loss. That was a tough one tonight.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I feel like football now is officially back because we've had a Thursday night football game where we had a split screen shot of Micah Parsons being carted off while Malik Nabers was like carried to the Blue Medical tent. And I was like, yeah, that's how I feel inside the whole time watching this game. So.
Yeah, it was not a pretty game. A lot of penalties in the first half, calm down in the second half. Al Michaels was groaning. It looked like it was all but over late in the game. Brandon Aubrey, as I mentioned, lines up for a 51-yard field goal, misses it, gives Daniel Jones one chance to go 54 yards in 28 seconds. They get no yards. Throwing the ball down the field late was as ugly as it was throwing the ball down the field early. Otherwise, Daniel Jones played pretty well. We'll get into all that. But yeah, you kind of led with the big stuff, which late in the game, we'll just mention it right off the top. Malik Nabers leaves with a concussion. Micah Parsons was carted off the field. It appeared, I believe, with a lower leg injury, they're calling it. And DeMarcus Lawrence had left in the third quarter with a foot injury. So all of those injuries loom large, especially considering what a big, part of the offense Nabers was. He hit his head on the ground on what was, to me, really the end of the game, which was a fourth down play where Daniel Jones left the pocket. I thought a little early, Danny, and scrambled and actually made a nice throw in the end, got it on Nabers' hands, and you hate to see the game end that way. He tried to make a nice toe tap. It would have been a sensational play, but actually the ball did get to him, and he couldn't quite pull it in. You think of the game a couple weeks ago in Washington, different situation, but Nabers, who has been their best player by far, unfortunately in that spot couldn't bring it in, and yeah, now it sounds like he could miss some time.
It's just an awful ending to a strange game. But I mean, I looked like Nabers. I could be totally wrong, but it looked like he actually got knocked out cold trying to do the toe tap, that he had 2 feet on the ground at a weird angle, 2 hands on the ball. And it looked like he just hit his face on the ground. And I don't know if he was knocked out or what, but I mean, it sucked seeing him go out Nabers is the entire team. I've been trying to figure out when the last time a single NFL offense relied so heavily on a rookie that was not a quarterback immediately. Like even Odell Beckham for the Giants. I mean, I don't think Odell even played the first month of the season. You know what I mean? And Justin Jefferson didn't do anything until week 3. I mean, all the great seasons you think of. Frankly, I think you might have to go back to like Adrian Peterson for the last time a team entered a season and was like, this kid is our offense. Because Malik Nabers, it's closer to like my career in like a Madden or NCAA, the new college football video game, where like you're doing the creative player and like every play is for you. Like that's what the Giants offense is. And then when they double Nabers, it's for Wan'Dale Robinson. It's the entire offense. It's crazy.
Yeah. So on the night, Nabers ends up with 12 catches, 115 yards on 15 targets. He had a route early in the game that embarrassed Andrew Booth, the Cowboys cornerback, maybe more than any route I've ever seen any wide receiver embarrass a cornerback. At that point, they were like, you are not allowed to cover him the rest of the game, and he didn't. Like, Trayvon Diggs had to cover him the rest of the game.
It looked like Michael Irvin going to the bucket in the longest yard over Adam Sandler.
Danny, by the way, of course, from the Ringer fantasy football show, does great stuff over at the Ringer. You should check him out. He's with Danny Kelly over there, and has been awesome, and yes, is a Giants fan, and I was hoping for a Giants win just for content's sake. It would have been exciting to have you on after a win and to see what this Cowboys team would do at 1-3. I will give them credit for doing enough. I don't feel any differently about the Cowboys after tonight than I did going into the night, but it was a crucial victory, and Dak Prescott is still such an advantage, at quarterback, and it's tough to overcome that big of an advantage at quarterback. And what was the stat Al said at the end of the game? 13 straight over the Giants, or 14 out of 15 for. I mean, that is absolutely outrageous. Dak finishes 22 of 27, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a very 2024 night by Dak, where it's just like everything's just out of his hands so quickly. Almost everything's within 10 yards. But they moved the ball, and they scored enough when they had to. They left the door open a little bit for the Giants at the end. But yeah, you got to be sick of losing to Dak Prescott.
It's non-competitive, frankly. I mean, the Giants, again, so the Giants, Dak is 13 straight wins over the Giants. The Giants have not beaten Dak Prescott since 2016. And every time the Giants have beaten Dak. So the Giants, it's not just the Cowboys either, the Eagles too. The Giants against the Cowboys and the Eagles since 2017 are 4-25. Which is a worse winning percentage than the White Sox. So the Giants are basically the White Sox inside the NFC games that matter, except they're actually worse. The White Sox actually are like almost twice as good as the Giants are against the Eagles of Dallas. So it's like the extent to which the Giants have been futile. It's hard to even explain. It's like, oh, they're tied for the worst record over the last 7 years. That barely touches it.
Right, because it's not like it's the Bills during the Brady era who have a similar type of record, or the Bears during the Packers Rodgers era, like post Cutler, has a very similar record. Okay, it's like we don't have any quarterbacks. We're going against one of the all-time great teams. You're going up against the Cowboys, which has found a little consistency under Mike McCarthy, but they've been rolling through, Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. They haven't been able to string together playoff seasons in a row until the last couple of years. This is not Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady that you can't get a win against. Tonight I thought might be your night, but it was not your night.
That's the thing. Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, these guys that everyone is making fun of like, oh, look at these bozos. How are they beating anyone? Meanwhile, the Giants have not beaten this team in 7 years, basically. The only time it had to be Andy Dalton at quarter. That's the other thing. I didn't mention this. Of the 4-20, their 4 wins, 25 losses against Dallas and Eagles. 2 of those 4 wins were against backup quarterbacks. One's against Marcus Mariota for the Eagles, one's against Andy Dalton for Dallas. They've beaten Eagles starters and Cowboys starters twice in 8 years. So it's actually worse.
I absolutely love that. We got comments in the chat here. Anvil writes, Heifetz roots harder against the Giants than Cowboys fans, which is fun. And someone mentions Waddle's rookie year had a crazy target share. Heifetz, I believe it was 34 catches in the first 4 weeks for Nabers, unless he tacked one on after that, which was second most in NFL history. And he's special, and he's going to make this Giants season worth it no matter what. We'll get to more Giants in a bit, but I do want to talk Cowboys in this game. They're going to be the more relevant team long term, although I don't know how much is really separating these two teams. The Cowboys decided tonight, I thought it was interesting, to basically go with a 2-man backfield. It was just Rico Dowdle and Hunter Lipke. Hunter Lipke is their third down running back, which is funny. He's their fullback. He's kind of sneaky good. But as a Giants fan who saw CeeDee Lamb go in for that, touchdown, Tyler Nubin, your rookie safety, takes a terrible angle on that. Deonte Banks, who's like always in position for plays, but never makes plays. So I don't think he's a bad cornerback, but he's not, a standout cornerback yet. And that's okay for a second-year cornerback if you're just like, okay, that guy's a starter. That's not a bad outcome, I don't even think, for like a late first-round pick. But he never makes plays. He's always there, and he never makes them.
I'm going to steal that. He's always the bridesmaid. He's standing right there.
Yes. And Nubin is the one that really should take the heat for that play. But CeeDee Lamb came out in this game, had a monster first half, ends up 7 for 98, had a great rushing attempt in the first half, and then they went back to that, and it didn't work in the second. But after that, and Ferguson's a good tight end, after that, it's crazy to me. My theory, and I know Cavante Turpin maybe didn't get on the field on offense. I mean, he was on the field, but I don't think he got a target. My assessment of this offense right now is that Hunter Lipke and Cavante Turpin are weapons 3 and 4, which is not what you want. I think Lipke is actually a pretty funky player. He's pretty fun. He's pretty athletic for a fullback. He could do lots of things. Like, he honestly could, who knows? I don't want to get over my skis, but he could have a pretty fun career here. But if he and Cavante Turpin, who's dynamite anytime he gets the ball, but must not know how to run routes, or else like he would be in the lineup more. Like, I don't know. Like, he's unreal. Cooks looks cooked to me. Like, I don't know about Brandon Cooks at this point. He gets 4 targets, 1 catch. Jalen Tolbert's never done anything, and just it's a little thin. Everything's hard for the Cowboys, even against this Giants defense. Everything is hard for them in terms of moving the ball down the field.
I totally agree. I don't think that this game, if you're a Cowboys fan, changes anything about how you feel about the team. I don't care that the Giants only had 1 yard of carry. I still think Mozzie Smith has a habit of kind of like making the guys blocking him look like they're Shaq botting people out of the paint. I don't think, I think when you face a tougher rushing team, like I don't think those questions are answered. And then I think like CeeDee Lamb's incredible. Yeah, he sent Tyler Newman into like the astral realm. Like Tyler Newman, like I just flashed back to when the Giants were like, damn, all the guys we wanted were taken. I guess we'll take Tyler Newman. But yeah, I mean, to your point about Hunter, I agree. I think Lipke actually looks solid. But overall, I think Dallas, they remind me in a way of the Jets, where it's like the Cowboys are just 4 ACLs from this whole thing collapsing at any point. And so what happens to this team if, unfortunately anything with Micah Parsons is a serious injury? Dak looks incredible. I thought, honestly, that scramble he had to Lipke for that 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 was one of the best throws of the whole game. But overall, I just keep looking at Mike McCarthy with the Nick Sirianni thing. I'm like, what are you doing here? Why is nobody open? Why? Like, I don't understand much about this. Dallas has developed talent. I look at Tyler Guyton struggling, and I'm like, you know what? Tyron Smith didn't have a great necessarily September. Like, I'm not worried about a bunch of stuff for Dallas, but I don't think I looked at this game and think they're anything. They're still the big bad wolf of the regular season, but I don't know.
Right. And we'll see in the NFC East. Like, I think they're a tick lower than they were the last couple seasons. I'm much more concerned. This Mike Zimmer defense wasn't getting a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones. I checked out the pressure numbers via Next Gen Stats, and I was surprised to see that Daniel Jones had a pretty good numbers against pressure tonight. It ended up 6 for 11 for 69 yards, which is not great. I think that was the last 3 plays basically. But before that, he was like 6 for 8. But I barely saw any of those pressures, and they weren't touching him. Like, Daniel Jones I can't remember a Giants game where Daniel Jones got out as scot-free as this. Maybe the Commanders game, too, there was a little bit of that, but he barely got hit, barely got knocked down. They did a good job against Parsons for the most part. Andrew Thomas is a stud, and when Lawrence goes down, it's just uneven. Like, I don't see big time talent. And the criticism you're saying about McCarthy in this offense, like, what does that remind me of? Like the end of days in Packers land, which is just exactly. Like they want to play we have the better players and we're just going to beat you offense. And it does feel to me, without getting ageist, there's a little bit of some of these old guard offensive coaches. I don't know. I think they're getting closer to the end. Doug Peterson and Mike McCarthy are
it's like the Pete Carroll of offense, where you're like, yeah, we're just going to line up and beat you, and it's like that doesn't work anymore. Like Cody Alexander at Match Quarters always says, like, static is death. And you look at a bunch of this. I thought the most creative thing they did all night was put CeeDee Lamb in the backfield. Both teams did that, actually. Malik Nabers, one of the best dropbacks Jones had all freaking season, was actually Malik Nabers basically just ran a dig out of the backfield. That was kind of awesome. And then CeeDee had the longest run of the night. He ran for however many yards on that 1st and 20. But to your point, I think that the Mike Zimmer defense part. Sorry, I know I'm going back and forth between offense.
No, I love it.
But the Cowboys defense, the Dan Quinn, he has the how do you do, my fellow kids? He's got the backwards hat, and I don't know schematically if it's still the best thing, but he resonates with the players. And defense is, for all the schematics, it's also a lot of effort. And I think Dan Quinn was like, hey, you guys can go do cool stuff. Micah Parsons, one gap, get in the backfield, disrupt, get to the guy. Trevon Diggs, you know what? Just jump routes, get pick sixes. He gets hurt. Oh, okay, cool. We're going to have Jerron Bland, jump routes, get pick sixes. Mike Zimmer comes in, screaming at everyone. He's mean. You know what I mean? It's just no one does anything cool. Everyone's got to do your unsexy, really bored job. Hold it. You know what I mean? It's not, the jobs aren't as fun. And so when the defense doesn't have results, I think that over the course of the season, I think that could wear on people. And I think the pass rush didn't there. I'll see if there's one thing they did really well. The tackling by Dallas was phenomenal. They really needed to get better at that. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5'8", so I don't know how much credit they get. Wan'Dale Robinson was stopped on 3rd down, a yard short of the sticks, I think 5 times tonight. So I will give Dallas credit for tackling.
Yeah, and one of them, it was late in the game. Was that before that? No, they picked up the 4th down in that one. But 11 catches for Wan'Dale for 71 yards. I mean, he is your 12th round or free agent pickup in fantasy you play him in your fourth flex spot, dream right now. Because, like, he's going to give you, like, he's not going to have a high ceiling, but he's going to get you your 13, 14 fantasy points, man. It's not going to be pretty. Like, you might not want to watch it, but he actually usually makes the first guy miss. I think he's played well. I think he has a role in an NFL offense as a very useful player. If he's your 3/4, if you happen to have a good tight end, like, that's perfect. He's a little overextended right now, as like that it's Nabers and him and that's it. Slayton, you need to get Slayton more involved, but I think Wan'Dale's a good player. Actually, that's been my takeaway from the end of last season and this season.
I totally agree. He's a good player. He's probably a little miscast as if it's not Nabers, it's him. And so on the Ringer Fantasy Football Show, I joked that PPR, point per reception scoring, is participation trophies, and like tonight's kind of a good example where I'm like 71 yards, but he gets 11 points for 11 catches, like almost none of which went for first down. So frustrating.
The first couple of games he was picking up first downs, but it's crazy. They showed the third down passing tonight, and he had more targets than Nabers, and they had all of them, and that's really all they ever did. Zachary Janda says we should end the show with some tennis talk. I mean, don't tempt me with a good time here. We got the Tokyo Open. Kei Nishikori bringing it back to 2014. Little revenge over Marin Cilic. No, I'm not going to talk tennis at all. I will completely bore everyone.
I love Tiafoe. We have to have a Tiafoe conversation.
I would love to. It probably should be off mic. Micah Parsons, yeah. There's no update from Mike McCarthy. We're taping this as they're doing the press availability. It is an ankle injury for Micah Parsons, so that's worrisome. Lawrence with the foot is extremely worrisome. The results of those two injuries is going to really shape this Cowboys next month, potentially season, because right now they are a team that isn't good enough at anything to survive losses. Like, they're bad enough on defense with those two guys who are two of their three best players on defense, including Diggs as well, at this point with Lawrence probably around the same level. Without them, they're cooked because, they went into the week, we got to stop the run. We're sick of everyone saying we can't stop the run. The Giants did not have a run over 5 yards, but that was the Giants.
Exactly. And I mean, look, I feel like the worst defensive lines in the league right now that are making the defenses just DOA are like Cincinnati, Carolina, Arizona. I think if Dallas doesn't have any game where they don't have Micah Parsons or DeMarcus Lawrence, I think Dallas is right there because they already, the defensive tackle, the whole spine of the defense is already their biggest issue. They already have Eric Kendricks, who, I mean, frankly, this Eric Kendricks, Mike Zimmer thing wasn't working like 3 years ago. It's kind of incredible. It's still happening in 2024. And then if they, I mean, I frankly, maybe am I being hyperbolic and saying this is like a bottom 5 defensive line without those two dudes and maybe a bottom 5 defense?
No, that's not hyperbolic. I mean, they, through the first 3 weeks, which is all we can really judge, were pretty close to a bottom 5 defense overall, just in terms of the eye test and pretty much the numbers. And this is a night where, I just don't think they have the talent on defense. And so you need Dak to carry you, but like I said, everything is so hard. Last week, Next Gen Stats had something that was the lowest, separation that he's ever seen in a game. And tonight, whether Cowboys fans like it or not, because I know they're not aiming for a first-round exit, and this season they're not getting to 12 wins. Just it's not going to happen. Like, I think they're aiming for win the division at 10 or 11 wins and hope that's enough. They're not going to be that team this year. The reason you give Dak Prescott all that money is actually games like this. It's because he goes 19 for 22 against zone coverage, 13 for 14 when he gets rid of the ball under 2.5 seconds for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you can say, man, wasn't that exciting, wasn't that boring? But it's like he's moving. He is basically controlling the entire game himself against an inferior team in the division. And that he's going to get you those wins almost by himself without a lot of help. He's got CeeDee Lamb and a little bit of coaching, but I don't know. Right now, the talent around him isn't that great. And so it's partly why you give him all that money. And the rest of the numbers, they're not doing a lot down the field, but other than CD, who's not, that's not what he majors in. I don't know what their downfield passing is. I mean, if the Giants and Cowboys weren't in the same division, I'd say they should call the Giants about Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton could help them.
Yeah.
I'd take him. I would take him in Brandon Cooks in the Cooks role any day.
And it's funny because Darius Slayton led the Giants in receiving 4 years in a row, and they tried to cut him every one of the 4 seasons. So that actually would work really well. And then, no, I totally agree. I mean, Dak Prescott used to make annually under $700,000 a year, and now he's making like $800,000 per quarter of every game. And so, but like you watch a game like tonight, and you're like, yeah, you know what? He's playing really well, and almost in a weird way. I don't know if it's stylistically, but he almost reminds me of Matt Stafford in the middle of the 2010s with the Lions. Just because if he was on a different team, I think you'd really quickly be like, oh my God. Like he might win the MVP, like in a weird way. There's questions about how good he is and what has he accomplished, but then you take Stafford off, you put him on the Rams, and you're like, oh, they won the Super Bowl. And I kind of think Dak's actually in that range too, where if he had been airdropped into Miami in a healthier Miami season, I kind of think it would be immediately unbelievable. But Jerry Jones is older than Joe Biden, so this team isn't very good.
Harrison Kaltenbeck says this Cowboys defense looking this bad in weeks 2 through 4 really shows you how bad Deshaun Watson is. You're telling me Watson was useless against this defense. I have thought about that a little bit, like all the Watson games and in like the Jaguars game, like everything. When you see those defenses play other teams, you're like, man, Watson is really struggling. That's true. It is kind of crazy though, like the disrespect for your Giants. And let's switch over to focusing on the Giants a little more. That you only gave up 15 points to the Giants, and it's considered a terrible performance by the Cowboys defense. I guess the reason for that is there weren't a lot of stops. The Giants moved the ball all day, but it was like long field goal drives. They end up with 300 yards, and yeah, it comes off 5 field goal drives. Wait, they didn't have a touchdown in this game, right? Am I crazy?
No, they did not have a touchdown. I mean, Dable went for it on every fourth down that mattered, except the one that actually mattered the most, which was the one like 3 yards from the goal line. And I'm like, he settled for a field goal. And I'm like, look, the Giants lost. Here's the thing. The Giants gate. You want the big picture Giants, or you want the first?
Well, first I want you to put a pin in that for a second and say, or I can mention just the situation there. At that point, they're down by 5. It's either late third or early fourth. Both defenses are struggling to get stops, and they choose to kick a field goal on 4th and goal from the 3 to cut it from 5 to 2, which was patently insane and shocking to me because he's an offensive coach, and he did go for 4th down in other key spots in the game, and it was kind of obvious to me. It's like, man, it's going to be hard for them to get close to the goal line because they're not getting any chunk plays. And they got it. And it's like the next time they had 4th and 4 at midfield, they got it. Like I trust them to get 3 yards. I don't trust them to get down there.
And it's like Nick Sirianni-esque, where it's like you have a chart that you consult. And again, a coach's job is to take the analytics and assess it to real life, whether the numbers apply. Having said that, I mean, any of the decisions they had made earlier, if those were goes, like, I don't know why 4th and 3 wouldn't be a goal. It wouldn't be like a go for it, except the answer is they're like, I'll take the points. Because for all the stuff like 4th downs about analytics, it's also about like, it's like Madden. You're like, I would like this points now. And then you get really close and you're like, oh, we got the field goal. I don't know. I mean, even maybe this is wilder too, but they had I think it was a 4th and 9, and then the Cowboys went off sides, which was insane on the field goal. And they could have taken the 3 points off and go for the 4th and 3 there. And I thought that was a little concerning, but I don't think the 4th down was what bothered me the most. Frankly, I thought the Giants game in a nutshell was that the first quarter was that the refs shot the Giants in the foot. And, the face mask on Daniel Bellinger, that he got face masked and flagged for it. So the Giants lost 30 yards. They should have had a 1st and 10 at the 18. Instead they had a 2nd and 18 at the 48. And then the next drive, the Cowboys
objectively one of the worst calls of the NFL season. I actually am not a get on the refs guy almost ever, just because it seems like an impossible job whenever you see it live there down on the field. And we recognize like that players and coaches screw up a million times every game, and there's no acceptance that, like, of course the referees do. But that one, to your point, put them out of like a great touchdown situation to absolutely killing the drive. And it was a mystifying, like, reversal call. You rarely see a call hurt a team that much that is inexplicable. So I will give you that as a Giants fan.
And it really was. And I'm actually agreed too. I think people are too hard on refs, but like the contrast with the next drive when the Jake Ferguson has clearly holding on a cornerback and he's pulling it's pure jersey. I know holding's every play, but it's like pull jersey. They throw the flag, they pick the flag up, and I'm like, come on, dude, it's already on the ground. They give us you're gonna pull the makeup call away, and it wasn't a makeup call. He did it. So then that gives the Rico Dowdle touchdown. So But having said that, I'm not going to blame the refs for the game, because the first quarter was the ref shot the Giants in the foot. The second quarter was the Giants shot the Giants in the foot, because, I mean, it's so funny. Daniel Jones finished this game with 29 of 40. It was like way fewer incompletions until the last drive. 281 yards, took no touchdowns, one interception at the end that didn't count. I thought Daniel Jones kind of played, in a way, terribly in this game, and that actually in the second quarter alone, not terribly, but like he probably left 21 points on the board. They should have, like, he missed a deep touch on a free play. He underthrew Darius Slayton for a touchdown by 15, maybe like 20 yards, considering Darius Slayton was in a full sprint and had to slow down. He missed Malik Nabers in a full sprint on basically like a giant deep cross. He didn't get to see Malik Nabers down the sideline on pylon another time. He missed Slayton short again on the last drive. Like, every single play that could have broken open the game that Dable, I think, schemed really well, Daniel Jones was short by an amount that it was more like, is he healthy than anything else? Like, I was wondering if he actually can physically do it, because every single time he needed to throw a ball over 40 yards, he could not do it, period.
So the numbers on his deep passing this year are insane now. He's 2 for 14 on throws over 20 yards. And it was something that the Giants beat writers were saying all camp, like, Dable's really stressing vertical. They want to go vertical, but it hasn't looked good for Daniel Jones when he goes vertical. And you're right. The broadcast, which, I have my issues with this Thursday night broadcast, basically Al, but it's a little bit of Al.
Is it because Al basically admits he doesn't want to be there at every quarter of the game?
He's not adding to it. And I get that it's fun when he bangs on the ref. That's probably the best part of Al. Actually, let's take a listen to Al having his version of fun on Thursday night.
2-minute warning has not occurred. We got another flag. It's like June 14th here, otherwise known as Flag Day, as you know.
And he's probably checking his mentions, because there was about 15 different other little one-liners and jokes after that. You seem like you want to go after it.
Well, I don't know how far you want to go. All I'll say is Al Michaels. I don't know. I mean, does he want to be doing this?
I love Al Michaels. The thing that bothers me the most by far is more just updating the audience on really important parts of the situation in the game. So that's your job as a broadcaster. When Nabers was concussed, they didn't mention it, and then he just goes, "Oh yeah, Then Nabers goes into the blue tent. He just says Nabers went into the blue tent, and that was it. And then at the end, he said he had a concussion, didn't say he's real, and just barely met. In a very similar situation with Tua a couple weeks ago, and that came like a minute or two after he had already given the Cowboys the win. I'm like, wait, the game isn't over. He was talking about what a great ride it's going to be back. Okay, I don't need to get into all that, but it bums me out a little bit. This Giants night, I think, was probably most disappointing if you drill down into the defense. Dexter Lawrence, according to Next Gen Stats, was double-teamed on 20 of 25 plays. It's 80%. That is the highest rate of double teams in any game for any player since 2016.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. You need the other guys to step up more is kind of my takeaway from that.
I'm not going to lie, and I know this is biased fan brain speaking, but I actually think I'm right. I think Dexter Lawrence on a better team would be on like a Hall of Fame track. Like, I think Dexter Lawrence is very clearly like the best player on defense. That's not Aaron Donald. If you want to throw Chris Jones out there because he's done it at the Super Bowl level, sure. But Dexter Lawrence is like a special player that is being just abominably wasted, and it's crazy to say this out loud, but I believe he turns 28 this season, and I'm like, all right, well, do the Giants freaking have to trade him just because he's not going to be good enough on the path that the Giants are on? I don't know. It's the only strength of the team is Brian Burns, Thibodeau, who actually did stuff tonight and then undid it. He got a sack and then immediately committed a penalty to undo the sack. But then this is the strength of the team, and it's back to old school Giants of like having a great defensive line. The secondary is a mess. I'm kind of like, whatever, you can fix that if the pass rush is good enough. But yeah, I mean, Lawrence is a special player, and I'm very excited to waste his prime.
Anytime they just put one guy against him, I mean, it's over. It's absolutely over. I'm with you. Hall of Fame trajectory is too far because he had such a late breakout. Really, his his breakout was 2 years ago. And so this is the third year he's stacking as an elite player. But you're not crazy because he got robbed. He should have been an all-pro last year, like first or second team. He certainly was a Pro Bowler. Like, I think he will be an all-pro this year. And if you start stacking up a couple all-pros in a row, like, then you start getting into the discussion. So if he keeps stacking these years, he can do it. But you need more out of Brian Burns, who's hasn't been bad this year, but hasn't been special. This game, he was absolutely silent. He was not credited with the pressure. Now, Dak gets credit for some of that, certainly, but Kayvon had a great night. Like, Kayvon was beating Guyton pretty regularly, and the matchup, I guess, for Burns then was Terrence Steele, who's been struggling all year, quite badly, really. The whole Cowboys offensive line has been up and down. Zach Martin hasn't really been who Zach Martin wants to be. The rookies are,
eye drops today.
Right. Well, yeah, he got an eye injury. That was there was a lot going on in this game in terms of injuries, guys getting in and out. Diggs had a cramp at one point, but yeah, this defense isn't gonna be special enough. It's tricky. I feel for you. I feel for Giants fans. I've come around. I'm finally over it.
Well,
I'm finally over what happened a decade plus ago.
I understand because it's weird. It's also weird as a Giants fan because two things are true. Giants won 2 Super Bowls this century, and it's like, how do you complain about that? The flip side is they're tied with the Jets for the worst record in the NFL over the last 7 years, period. They've been the worst team. They're the worst team in the NFL. And so it's a really weird identity shift to go from like, yeah, we're like the asterisk on the Patriots' dominance of this century and also the worst team at the same time. And also the Giants
and Coughlin never made the playoffs with Eli, like other than when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, they did it like once or twice, but it was like barely.
Yeah, the Giants are an anomaly that happened twice. Like the Giants' big picture are just this. Like Buster Douglas never fought Tyson again. The USA never like beat USS the Soviet Union again. Like the Giants are in the conversation for the biggest upsets ever, but then they won the rematch. But like it was everything else is a fluke. But it's weird because they're celebrating, quote air quote, celebrating the 100th season. The Giants are unequivocally in the worst 7-year stretch of the entire history of the franchise. Like it's not even close. And so with that, I ask you, in your unbiased opinion. Mm-hmm. They got to move on from Jones, right? Because I think this is like a Rorschach test. I think he played well tonight because I look at this game as a very well schemed game by Dable that Jones frankly ruined by not hitting the 3 things that should have been touchdowns.
I think you're probably closer to the truth than just saying he played well. I think the bar is so low for Jones coming into the year because of the couple last games that we saw him play last year, and then the preseason, what you heard, and then week 1 was such an abomination that the last 3 weeks in a league where so many quarterbacks are looking just absolutely terrible, Daniel Jones is just like, he hasn't killed you the last few weeks. He's completing a high percentage of passes. Like tonight, yeah, on over 2.5 second throws, and this all got worse at the end. But at one point, he was kind of dealing. He's 16 for 25 for 204 yards. Yeah, I mean, the one play down the field is when Nabers, shakes his cornerback to be like 20 years open. But yeah, of course they have to move on from Daniel Jones like this after this season. I think he's played well enough that there's no need to go to Drew Lock now. He's playing. My thing with Daniel Jones was always, if you protect him, he could be replacement level, which is to say he's not a franchise quarterback. He's not above the Dalton scale as a franchise quarterback, but he's not like a catastrophe. He's just like he's a bridge quarterback that you should have never given the contract that you gave to him. It was obvious when it happened.
In dating terms, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's nice.
And he does seem like a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's fine.
Having you on tonight, I was thinking about it. It could possibly be my subconscious as revenge.
You just wanted to
just like
flay me.
07. Yeah, just teach you a lesson in professionalism, coming off after a tough loss. My first Super Bowl that I covered, which was an absolute thrill, was for NBCSports.com in the 07 season, 08. It was, the 18-1 game, Giants Patriots. And yeah, I had to do some digital hits that probably 16 people watched after the game. But, we had a microphone and there was cameras there. And I thought like, I think we did like 5 reasons why the Giants won or something. I was like, I was like, I nailed it. Like totally unbiased, professional. It was awesome. I watched it the next day and it looked like my parents had like just fallen like deeply ill. And like, I was just like totally ashen and sad. And I totally had faked myself out into thinking that I like wasn't disappointed when I was very disappointed.
It's funny because while you were doing that hit, that was the best moment of my entire life. Like literally, they were handing you the trophy. It was the best moment to date.
I actually had it was a really fun night and a fun experience, and that like the adrenaline of the whole thing didn't really hit me until going to a bar afterwards and starting to see the highlights on the TV and then realizing like, oh yeah, that's real. That happened. And you had no idea in the stadium that the helmet catch was the helmet catch.
Yeah.
And like, I was immediately filing and going on the field. So I wasn't even on, it's 2008. You're not on. So I had no idea that the helmet catch was the helmet catch.
The Asante Samuel drop was like actually the.
I mean, I saw Randy Moss, my favorite player, score a game-winning touchdown in what would have been the best drive of Tom Brady's career if Manning didn't ruin it. Like that, people kind of forget that drive.
He had to step on Corey Webster.
Yes.
And then Jay Alford came in and just, like a cannon on that third down. But yeah, not that I remember every single play of that game, but it's fine.
Anvil says Daniel Jones is tearing the Heifetz family apart. I love that there's a lot of Heifetz fans who came in tonight. And Geo Central asks, is Washington the second best team in the NFC East? That's a fun question. I think they have a chance because I think they're obviously either the best offense or the second best offense, and that'll take you far. They probably have the worst defense in the entire league, but if they could be a top 5 offense with a bottom 5 defense and go 8-9 or 9-8 with that in a bad division, that could be better than the Cowboys. I'm pretty down on the Cowboys right now. It's one reason why I thought the Giants would cover this game. I guess they did with that Aubrey miss at the end. It depends when in the week you got your number. I thought the Giants would cover and maybe win this game, and because I just don't have much faith in this Cowboys team. So I will say they're about tied with the Cowboys if I had to power rank.
I mean, Bill Barnwell, who I believe is watching the stream right now, picked Washington as a potential surprise team that could make the playoffs. I think they totally could. I think Cliff Kingsbury has like somewhat consistently just his offenses have staled as the seasons wane. And so I think that I'm a little hesitant to kind of assume that the incredible Jaden Daniels start will go. I actually think there are a few reasons that it might not happen this year, but until I see it, I'm a little hesitant to be like, yeah, this stuff Cliff Kingsbury is doing great in week 3 is going to continue to week 13. Whereas Dak, I think, is just, been there, done that. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not trying to sound like some salty Giants fan either. I just, again, it's Dak. They couldn't do it when Dak was making $700K a year, and now Dak's making $800K a quarter. And Mike and Parsons and CD used to make 2%, 3% of the Dallas cap, and now they're about to be like 22, 24%. And I just overall, again, the lack of depth on this Cowboys team, it's like people get hurt, but there's no next man up. Like they've developed some people, but again, and the next games that Dallas plays, I mean, not to beat up on the Cowboys right now, but
no, let's look ahead a little bit.
Steelers, Lions, 49ers, Falcons, Eagles, Texans. That's what the Cowboys have coming up.
And their bye is in there. And it's funny because I listen to a lot of team podcasts. I've started doing that lately just to get the vibe. And I listen to Love of the Star podcast and the Cowboys. And I listen to a 49ers podcast. And a lot of them are like, man, if we lose this week, if you look at the schedule, we might not win again until the bye week. And I'm like, wow, Cowboys reporters are saying this? Like we could be 1-5 and then McCarthy would be in trouble at the bye week. And I'm like, wow, that's dark. I wouldn't go that far. Like you're probably going to be able to beat some of these good teams. But this win was absolutely crucial with the injuries now to think about. And yeah, the Giants head to Seattle next week, I believe. And that's
gonna be brutal.
That's a tough spot that's a real litmus test for Daniel Jones, who hasn't had the toughest, run. He survived against the Browns defense. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like you played the Browns defense and you survived.
Those two defenses, though, are the past. Like Jim Schwartz is one of the last guys doing static defense with any success. Okay. And then Mike Zimmer is the past, and like Mike McDonald is the bleeding edge of the future. And I think Daniel Jones is going to do very poorly.
It's going to be his last season with the Giants. I think how the rest of the season goes will decide if it's Dable and Joe Shane's last season with the Giants. This will not be your last time on NFL Daily.
Next year we'll do this again when Bill Belichick is coaching the Giants and Deion Sanders is coaching the Cowboys.
That would be awesome. We don't need to wait till next year. It's in the title, Danny, NFL Daily. So I want to have you back again. You're too good at this. I'm having major camera problems before we taped. It delayed us like 5 minutes. I set up this beautiful new camera that it's just amazing, but it didn't get it rolling tonight. And I'm frazzled, and you're just cool as a cucumber with your Alec Baldwin hair back there. And I appreciate you. Everyone should check out Danny, the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. Your writing. What else can we plug, Danny?
Yeah, theringer.com, great website. And yeah, the Ringer Fantasy Football Show, do it with Danny Kelly, Craig Horlbeck. And yeah, it's a great fantasy football show because we're kind of dumb and we're right sometimes, but we have a very fun time. So yeah, we actually give good advice. We were the only show, I think, that didn't have Christian McCaffrey as the number one guy, but also we argued today for like 5-10 minutes about whether Jupiter is made of like gas or solid. We couldn't. So yeah, we're a different show. So check it out. Thank you for having me because this show is incredible and you're doing an amazing job.
I appreciate that. And that is a very smart take on McCaffrey. I would like to think that back, if I put myself in the shoes of when I was back in the fantasy mines, working hard, I don't think I would have had McCaffrey first. All I needed was I'm not taking anyone with a soft tissue injury before the season, period. It's if I, I'm not saying not take him, but I'm not taking him first overall, and I'm probably not taking him above his average draft position. If you just did that as a fantasy football owner, you're probably gonna win way more than you lose. Oh, a guy that's had injury issues before, and I don't even want to get into his history and stuff, and now he's going to Germany. I would like to think I would have had the same opinion. I told my son not to take him, there you
go. That's all that matters. They gave the only advice that really mattered. So there you go.
He did not listen, but he didn't get the first overall pick, so he didn't wind up with him. Thank you, Danny. Heifetz, again, check out the fantasy show, the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. I will be back on Friday. We do our little mini pick show with some picks against the spread with Cynthia Freeland. And so, the Giants are 1-3. That's when you know for sure that football is back. See you next time.